Hello, Albie Carpet and Floors to Go members. We really appreciate you dialing into this webinar. There's a lot going on in our world today, and our hearts go out to you. Of course, we're thinking of you at every turn. We are all going through some different times right now, which is part of the reason this webinar was created, to have our Google partners and Google themselves talk to us about the way they see things happening and what's happening in the market, how they're helping businesses during this uncertain time, but also some preparedness for the future. We wanted to open this webinar up to not only the members who are running our digital programs today, but to all of our members, whether you're doing digital marketing at all or working with a third-party provider. We thought it was very important for everybody to get a different perspective and hear from our partners that support us on the digital front. So we are going to hear from them. We'll be switching controls over to Google, and we'll listen to what they have to say and how they see things happening. We certainly appreciate all of our members, and again, we're here to support you in any way we can. Please take a listen to what our partners have to say here, and we'll be, of course, back in touch to talk to you individually as you need support, and these folks are here to support you as well. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our Google partner, Steve Butler. If you've been at convention over the past years, you've probably met Steve in our booth. He has been our support arm and one of our partners as we continue to support and develop new programs on the digital front. So with that, we'll turn it over to Steve. Steve, it's over to you.
Thanks, Bill. Welcome to members, both from Abby Carpet as well as Floors to Go. I hoped to use this time today to get some information directly from Google to help shed some light on perhaps what you and your teams might expect, and really set a kind of a groundwork for what you should be doing over these next few weeks, hopefully no longer than that, with regard to digital advertising. I've been working with Bill and his team now for, my God, I think 5 years, if memory serves me right. And I'm pretty proud of the program that we've developed together. It's really designed specifically for your stores and the industry that you serve. And today, what I hope to do is shed some light on what is going on in the digital industry and talk about maybe what you can do today and going forward. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Colin. Colin Morrow is from Google. He is an agency rep that works with me and my agency. We depend a tremendous amount on Colin and his team to help make sure that we're always up to date with what's available within the Google scheme of digital advertising. So at this point, let me turn it over to Colin, and let's see what he can share with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve and Bill. Try and get the controls here for a second. All right, 1 second. All right, it looks like my screen should be up.
It looks
Steve and
good,
Bill.
Colin. Yes.
Yep, thank you. Say shout out if not. So as Steve and Bill both kind of called out, I'm an agency strategist with Google. I have been working with Steve for a while now. I work with Steve and his agency across multiple accounts, and with Steve specifically on Abby Carpets, and is kind of one of the accounts, you know, over over the last 6 months to a year that I've really started to hone in and work with Steve on, as well as dive into myself. Obviously, with the recent events, I've been on a few phone calls with Steve and just trying to, I mean, again, as Steve has said, and as Bill has said, help in anywhere, any and every kind of way I can. And with that being said, what we kind of an idea we came up with was to go through kind of trends, high level trends we're seeing since COVID-19 has kind of created a self quarantine for a lot of the country, and with that, a lot of the businesses and consumers of the country. So, main part of what I'm going to walk through today is kind of high level consumer trends, and more specifically at home consumer trends, that, being a part of Google, I certainly do not have all of the answers, and this is certainly a fluid and fast moving situation where updates are happening by the minute. So I will share the high level information I have and the information that I think is relevant for at home consumer trends. I also have a little bit of high level information in terms of trends on the flooring industry. But to be completely transparent, honest, I can continue to try and pull more information there, where a lot of this information speaks more to what consumers, are doing since they have been self-quarantined for a large part of the country at home. And from there, I will start moving through this presentation. So as I discussed, kind of start with high level at home consumer trends. What we're seeing so far since kind of the last 2 weeks and since COVID-19 has really become a pandemic, across the globe and in the US, is that we are entering a new reality, as the new, very important phrase of self-distancing has put incredible measures for people to stay at home and stay at a distance. With that, 78% of the US is now working from home, and 32.5 million US children currently out of school, and staying at home as their self-quarantine. So obviously very impactful numbers there for how things have moved at home since kind of the last 2 weeks, or from the last month, starting with February 13th, and data through March 12th. Google Trends is showing that consumers are really using search to obviously prepare for any unknown and any uncertainty especially as it relates to food. So, some of the bigger shopping or search trends that we've seen are: what is your coronavirus shopping list? Shelf stable food, so food that's going to last a long time, emergency supplies and food stocking. I kind of went in and drilled that down into obviously what's more relevant for Abbey Carpets, and the flooring industry, and looked at flooring search trends. So again, this is over the past 2 weeks. So kind of looking at a March 10th to a March 2026 timeframe. And I think what you can see here is the trend lines are pretty flat overall. And again, this is looking at flooring, carpet, hardwood tile. I had discussed kind of with Steve and Bill, like what kind of high level keywords I can put in here. Obviously there is a slight and subtle downward trend. This probably you can expect to continue to see somewhat of a slight downward trend, but I think the point to call out here is that it's for the most part a subtle downward trend and kind of flat trend line. So it's nothing where as soon as this hit and as soon as the self quarantine happening, people have just stopped searching for flooring. That did not happen. Otherwise, it has been pretty flat trending so far. Obviously, I know that doesn't answer every question, or most of the questions, but it is kind of just a high level look at the flooring industry. Again, getting more into what people are exactly searching for and what users are looking through Google search at home. Obviously, most of it is pertaining to the coronavirus, and a lot is kind of, you can see the top questions here. What is it? How many people, how fatal has it been? How are people preparing? And then the most searched of what to. Coming to the coronavirus is again, a lot of that food, and kind of supply resources, but what to stock up on, and what to prepare, how to prevent. So again, this is a lot of what audiences are initially thinking when it comes to their new reality of self-quarantine. This also has implication for businesses and business communications, and how business communications are updating and are kind of pivoting on their communications for whatever that business can do to help a user at home. That's kind of how the communication has really started to be updated, and it's kind of, how can the business help, and how is that business potentially set up to provide, either at home resources or an at home project, an at home distraction, knowing how much of the country is on self quarantine. So you can see from the tech companies, obviously it's a lot of connectivity in these two examples, and how they can continue to help keeping businesses and just consumers connected while they are pretty much quarantined at home. The other kind of area the slides and kind of the trends that I'm going to go through are talking about is just also, once users have moved past the initial, how am I preparing myself? How am I getting as much information on COVID-19 and the coronavirus as I can, and kind of getting my resources so that I'm feeling more prepared and comfortable. It's kind of then moving to what else, can I do at home? There is certainly a new audience of users at home that are trying to figure out creative ways of keeping themselves productive, keeping themselves safe, and also now it's kind of getting to the, how do I keep myself busy, and also what are new creative ways I can continue to be productive around the house, and making sure that I'm not just kind of falling into this, quarantine. I'm not doing anything, and I'm not continue on. So there are a lot of searches for how consumers can continue to be productive at home. As you can just see, things to do at the home is spiking like crazy in terms of searches on Google. Obviously, at-home entertainment is also surging. It's expected to surge and is already surging, with a 60% increase estimated for the amount of content streamed. I think I also read just this morning that the number of subscriptions for Disney Plus and Netflix, Disney Plus is up like 300% for their number of subscriptions week over week, which is no surprise as audiences are home longer and able to consume more content. And then, also there's gaming is also expected to increase. So no surprise, I would guess, for either of those. And we're also seeing, obviously, as the streaming and entertainment increases, the increase in time spent on YouTube, and also the increases across very not different, but the increases across certain pillars or certain ways to be creative at home. So obviously these kind of three examples are very different, but I want to kind of pick into the second example, which is kind of Mo Williams is an educator who's now offering homeschooling lessons for children, and that has, the searches for that have grown, or the views for that have grown, 1,000% over the past 7 days. And these are just kind of examples of what businesses are doing now that the new reality of people being self-quarantined. And I think the way to kind of look at these slides is figuring out what are the potential, opportunities. Obviously, with Abby Carpet's business, with being a flooring business, it is projects that happen in home, and obviously there are a plethora of new obstacles to getting to that home. Audiences figuring out what they potentially want to, not build, but want to the project that they want to create, with whether it be a flooring project, and there are new obstacles with that, but there's also opportunity with that, as people continue to look for what can I do around, outside and inside my home, now that I will be self-quarantined there for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks in many parts of the country. And from there, just kind of looking at messaging ideas that have been put together at Google and that we're sharing externally. And these are all messaging ideas, again, based on what we just talked about and based on new consumer trends. So I'll just kind of walk through each of these, but it's continuing to be as helpful as possible as needs evolved. So whether it's that you're either able to share new information about your business, or you're able to kind of pivot how your business is helping consumers stuck at home. I know in one of the conversations with Bill, it was talked about potentially it's just dropping off samples, dropping off tiles, dropping off anything that can be needed at front doors, or at a place, around the house that consumers are comfortable then picking up, and just giving them that opportunity to still figure out what their at-home project could be with Abby carpets. As obviously a lot of audiences, a lot of consumers are going to be very, it's going to be unlikely in a lot of areas of the country that they're going to want you to come inside, or they're going to be able to come into your store during this time. But it's kind of pushing your brand out there, and being as helpful as possible, and letting audiences know, we understand how hard this is for everyone, and here's what we're doing to help ease that tension, and ease the new challenges that we're all facing, forge new communities. So again, it's kind of building on that first point, but how can new connections with new customers be made now that we are all in this new reality, of less face-to-face, and more, more either over the phone, or more either through digital media and online advertising, to let audiences know of either what's still open, what's still available, or how you can continue to service consumers if they're not able to come into your store. Being available as much as possible. So on the third point, adjust for a 24/7 cycle. Obviously, that doesn't mean you have to be available 24/7, or during like very off, audience hours at night, but being available, throughout the day, and potentially into the evening, of when it might be easier for audiences to have a conversation with you where they might not have been able to before. But again, just meeting people during their time online, or during their time when they're available. Go big on promoting heroes. So I think this is one that's possible for all businesses. But again, celebrate the employees who are doing the hard work, and who are providing the most resources at this time. So if there's someone within your store that has been exceptionally helpful to the community, it could be even someone who's doing something outside of like the business, and potentially just providing some type of service to the community, is a huge way of it gets that employee's name out there, but in addition, it gets your business's continued name out there. Because I think the big goal here is making sure that the Abby Carpet brand does not, lose its share of voice and its share of branding in your community, in your area, as people are kind of, tightening the purse strings a little bit, and not spending as much for, at least this 2 to 3 weeks, making sure that your brand is still relevant at that time, and getting it out in any way possible is kind of the overarching note from this slide and the last couple slides, and making sure that your brand is less vulnerable once, the quarantine has finally come to an end, whenever that may be. That your brand is less vulnerable at that time, because you've continued to get your Abby Carpets brand and your Abby Carpets within your community. Your name hasn't been lost during this time. It didn't just kind of fade away, but people thought you did everything you could, or as much as you could do, to continue to bring your business, your service to people, as well as keeping your name relevant within the community. And then the last one, is kind of more of a fun one. It's more if you're set up to really, if you, I would say this one is kind of more so if you've already dabbled in this space. So it's okay if you haven't, but the ideas of like trying to create comic relief, or pivoting to just kind of giving people new ideas at home. I think Abby Carpet has more of an opportunity to kind of tell people how they're still there, and how they're still servicing the community, either keeping doors open, or coming, making direct delivery samples, or of kind of any service they can provide to households, and more of, I think the opportunity for Abby Carpets is more of the functional versus the novelty. But this was just another idea that kind of came from Google, as people are looking for more entertainment at home. From here, I'll also kind of just start to talk about branding opportunities, and these are kind of Google digital branding opportunities, but build upon the message of keeping the Abby Carpet, brand name, and also relevance in the community. Just making sure your consumers, and the people that you service within your community over time don't forget about you, and don't feel like you kind of just weren't there or weren't helpful during this time of additional challenges, and obviously as everyone is kind of looking for any help that can be provided from the businesses that they're used to working with.
Hey, Colin,
All
let
right.
me jump back
Yep.
in here again a second. This is
Yeah.
Steve. And try to wrap your discussion around other things that I've seen. I work in an agency that services about 400 different clients. When Colin talks about Abby, just to be clear, he's really talking about both Abby and Floors to Go. Abby is kind of our shorthand, the way we talk about it, but the reality is it's the whole relationship there. In my agency, we serve, again, about 400 different clients. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, as you might imagine, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of concern. We've seen a number of our clients who preemptively paused all activity. Some slowed their ad spend. What's been really interesting is in the last 3 days, we've had a number of clients who had turned everything off, turn it back on again, because they figured out a way to continue to do business. It wasn't necessarily the same way they were doing it before, but they've recognized that they needed to stay engaged. Colin talked about branding, and that's the kind of the key message that we've heard from Google and from other organizations in the advertising and marketing world, that in scenarios like this, while COVID-19 is different than what probably any of us have ever seen before, there have been miniature versions of this. And one of the common threads was advertisers who turned off advertising in the past were the slowest to rebound when things got better. The message that we're trying to promote, my mantra, I'll call it, is stay engaged. Stay engaged in some way. Now, in your stores, there are something in the neighborhood of 700 different stores in the Abby and Floors to Go umbrella. Some of you are out of business right now. Your store is closed completely. Some of you are open completely. Some of you are open but only doing installs. Some of you are doing shop at home. I can't give you the perfect answer, that the answer that's right for all of you, but what I do recommend is, if your store is still doing well, and as long as that continues to happen, continue to promote. The program that we've developed for you, along with Bill and his team, is one that has 3 components to it. The classic PPC, it's also called search. That's the scenario where somebody looks for flooring, we show them an ad for flooring, we direct them to your website. The second aspect of that is remarketing. That's the scenario where once somebody's been to your site, we remind them of your store with ads that show up all over the internet to the sites that they are visiting at this very moment. The third aspect is Google Display Network. The Google Display Network is vast in its opportunities. There are so many things that can be done. The path that we've chosen to use is one that's called in-market. In-market is basically defined by Google as people who are in the market to buy something. We have the ability to target people who are in the market to buy a car, or in the market to buy a stereo or an RV. Or in your case, what we've done is we've narrowed the focus to people who Google knows to have, in the last couple of weeks, been interested in flooring. But not just interested in flooring in general, but some sort of buy signal. Those 2 categories, those last 2, remarketing and Google Display Network, give us the opportunity to stay engaged at very low costs. While if you're in our program, you know that you're typically seeing for the search PPC, you might be seeing an average cost of a click of $350 to $450. Depends on the market, depends on just how competitive it is in the area that you're trying to serve. On remarketing and Google Display, the costs per click are much, much lower. And the purpose of those isn't even necessarily to get clicks as much as it is to stay engaged, to promote the brand, whether that's Abby, whether that's Floors to Go, or in many of your cases, I know your stores are actually, you maintain your original corporate identity. We strongly recommend that you stay engaged as long as you can in search. If you need to slow that spend because of the specifics of what's going on in your city with your store, that's fine. The Abby team can help pull that down, whether it's cutting it by 25%, 50%, or turning it off altogether, whatever's appropriate for you. But regardless of what you do on search, we feel strongly that it's important that you stay engaged and stay in touch with people with remarketing, at minimum remarketing. These are people who we already know have had an interest in flooring. These are people we already know have been to your website. So they're the closest thing to a solid lead. Now, they may not buy this week or next week because of the things going on with the virus and the concerns people have. But we don't want them to forget you when the time comes that they're ready to make a buy. That aspect of your spend is typically no more than about 10% of what your whole marketing spend was. Google Display Network gives us the opportunity to reach an even broader audience. Again, keep in mind, this is only people who are in the geography that you've told us to target, and it's an opportunity to reach people usually at a cost per 1,000 impressions of under $2, oftentimes closer to $1. What I mean by that is it gives us the opportunity to for $1 to $2 in general to show ads for your store 1,000 times for $1 or $2. Now, the messaging of that can take many forms. It might be very general in nature. It might be going back to what Colin said a few minutes ago. He talked about the fact that you should use this time to inform people. Maybe the ad is literally tells what the customer what's going on in your store. Maybe an ad, I'm making this up now, that work with Bill and his team on this, but maybe the ad has a messaging that says our store is closed right now, but call us. We can help with shop at home opportunities. Maybe the ad talks about the fact that you're still doing installations. It really gives you an opportunity to keep them up to date, but most importantly, to keep you top of mind to them. If we fast forward now, and I'm going to be optimistic. Maybe 2 weeks from now, the things are better, and that curve that we keep hearing about is going the other direction. That might be a good time to change your remarketing and display ads to say, to talk about that, to say we're starting to gear back up. We've ordered inventory again. I hope to be open in a couple of weeks. Whatever the messaging is that's right for you, Bill and his team can help implement that. So from my perspective, as somebody who works with hundreds of different companies in every industry possible, and from the things that we've learned from Google in the past, I think it's just incredibly important that you stay as engaged with your potential customers as you can. I'm not naive enough to think that money isn't a concern. I completely understand that it is. But if you need to cut back on digital ad spend, do it. My recommendation is that you don't cut back completely. If you've already turned it off, my recommendation is you turn remarketing back on, absolutely. start with $50, $100, $200 a month. It doesn't have to be a whole lot because the impressions are quite inexpensive, but it keeps you engaged. And if you can go a little deeper in that scenario, turn on the display network program. Let me turn it back. I rambled a bit there. I apologize. I know that Colin has a bit more to talk about. I think he's going to talk about some new things that are becoming available to the program. Is that right, Colin?
Yep. So I'll talk about a new ad placement, ad inventory we have called Discovery Ads in a second. But Steve, I think those were great points. And I think the one I really want to reiterate, or the 2 points I want to reiterate, is that the display network that Steve was talking about, and that it allows you to also use an image with your ad for potentially additional branding. I just want to hit on that point as Steve talked about kind of the cost. It is, as Steve said, and wanted to reiterate, so you would be hitting, likely you're getting 1,000 digital impressions or 1,000, ads hitting a computer screen per $1 to $2 spent. So that is a very efficient cost. And then the other point I wanted to call out is just that the audiences that these would be targeting, and this is what Steve spoke to also, these are the low hanging fruit of audiences. So as kind of in the trends I showed for flooring, hardwood, carpet, tile, the kind of the flooring high level turns, and seeing that, those are pretty steady trend lines of searches, it is hitting the audiences who are still searching for, some type of flooring and likely planning some type of home installation. So just wanted to kind of reiterate, like, we're not going after necessarily audiences who haven't searched or haven't looked for these type of products. When we say remarketing, it's audiences who have either been to your site or who are searching these keywords, signaling to us and signaling through Google searches that they are, very likely either currently in the market or have, started planning for a flooring project. And from there, I will kind of move to discovery ads. I do want to reiterate that obviously everyone, as we spoke to a few times on this call, has new challenges. Businesses, consumers, every single person has probably been met with a new challenge, in the last 2 to 3 or 4 weeks, based on this kind of unprecedented time and an unprecedented quarantine. This is also speaking to what Steve discussed, but we completely understand, if you're not able to continue digital advertising, and that's not where you're able to put your dollars. I think that's completely understandable, and that's what you'll need to figure out for your business. And I want to be clear, I'm providing opportunities if you haven't seen, business fall off, or if you're able to weather the dip and kind of weather the storm of the uncertain time that we're in, and you feel like you're able to weather that. This is where we come in and really want to provide the opportunities and branding opportunities, so that it's, if your store, is potentially still open, more audiences are understanding that and seeing that. And if your, the store maybe isn't open, but you're still able to do installations, then people are still understanding that. And then kind of the last option, you're at a minimum providing branding so that your brand is left less vulnerable once the quarantine has ended at some point in the future, and people are kind of back out, and they're first going to look to those brands that they saw, continuing to message and continuing to try and provide assistance in any way they could during this uncertain time. So just wanted to, I think, reiterate those points that Steve hit on very well. For there, I'll kind of go through. So Discovery Ads is a new Google ad product that launched in the second half, kind of Q3, late Q3, early Q4 of 2019 for Google. It is kind of built off of knowing the data of where consumers are really looking, and where they have started to find their brands, that they are choosing to engage with and they're choosing to buy from, what they're doing during those times. So we know from Google's suite of products that they are watching mobile videos. Obviously, YouTube has become an incredibly large platform with an incredibly large audience. We also know that they're on Google search and they're searching products. And this is actually going to be one of the big points. And then also that they're going through emails, obviously finding ads and finding new inspiration, while they're in email also for their new products and brands. So introducing the discovery ads, I really want to, it's reaching new customers in moments when they're open to discovering something new, and why we've kind of coined the ad space discovery. Really, if you look at the middle image where you'll see that Google search bar that I'm sure most people are very familiar with, underneath that search bar, and so within the Google app, as well as the Chrome browser app, there is now content surfacing underneath the search bar. I like to think of this kind of as my non-social news feed. It is also updating with content based off what I'm searching on Google. So I like this a little bit as kind of like my daily news source, or my morning news source, in terms of at least my digital morning news source, because I know it's not just being based off of who I'm friends with on Facebook or Instagram. It's actually coming off just only what I'm searching on Google. So that's a whole new ad inventory space that's now populating within those content cards under your Google search bar within the Google app or Chrome browser. The other place, and the other very premium places that I've kind of highlighted, but that the discovery ads will populate, are within the YouTube homepage feed. So again, a very premium inventory, ad inventory location, and then again within Gmail. So basically have come up with these discovery ads, which is a display ad or an image ad. So it will have an image and then also a piece of text. Again, a great space for those examples that Steve called out earlier, and that I also spoke to, of new messaging opportunities. Again, I think the most relevant opportunity for Abby is either, if you're still able to be open during this time, and not in a as much of a quarantine space, then we're still open, we're still here supporting our community in any way we can. If you're not open but you're still able to help with installations, then getting that message across, and how you're helping and getting information to consumers, even though they're unlikely to come into your store is not open. And then lastly, if neither of those first two are true, then just how you're continuing to message to the community of how in any way Abbey Carpets is helping, but how also what Abbey Carpets is looking to do potentially coming out of the quarantine, how it will be available out of the quarantine, or also if you're able to do any promotions, or you usually have a promotional around the springtime, or around the Easter time, then kind of calling out those promotions. But it is a little bit more of a branding space, because it has that image with text, versus it would only be text with search. And then it also is only living in these premium spaces of underneath the Google search bar, within the YouTube homepage, and then also on Gmail. It's also an incredibly simple execution. I kind of talked about the creative there, as you'll see. There's just like a image with a few text lines. It is you're targeting people based off their browsing history, based off their search history. But also we can make sure, and Steve can make sure, that it's only targeting people who have either only searched, who have only been to the Abbey Carpet site, or who have searched with kind of the top keywords related to flooring. And then this again would have incredible reach, and I'm also going to call it, this will show up in very premium inventory spaces, which I know I've spoken to before. And again, it's only needing with the execution piece, it only needs one asset, and it's kind of an image creative, a visual asset, and one asset will be able to run across those three inventory sources that I spoke to. So again, we're seeing really good results with this product, and as I'm sure everyone at some point in time has received an ad either in Facebook, in one of the social platforms, or just as they're scrolling through a feed. These are kind of the new the new feed inventory for Google, and what Google is putting a lot of resources behind as premium inventory ad spaces for a simple image ad. Again, we've talked a little bit about the audiences. I'll kind of just reiterate that point. But to no surprise, you notice that there 86% of people search for a product on Google search. Obviously, it makes that search position an incredibly premium inventory space to show an ad. But you would start with audiences who are only actively searching for the keywords that are the most relevant keywords in the flooring industry, and that your audiences are searching for. We do have the ability to, again, this is probably for later down the road, but there is an ability to go after additional audiences if seeing really strong performance. So there are, there's the remarketing and the custom intent we've talked about. We've also talked about the in-market. Potentially down the road, it could be life events, and a very, turnkey one for Abbey Carpets and flooring there would kind of be, just either moving or bought a new home. Those would be kind of easier and more upper funnel to target audiences. So that's kind of the main new branding ad I wanted to share with everyone during this, and kind of just talk about why those branding opportunities make sense right now as consumers are spending a lot more time at home and self-quarantine. The last slide I'll kind of just walk through quickly is just additional resources Google is calling out and Google is providing during this time of quarantine. I'll share this with Steve and Bill as well. And if please reach out to them. They can easily kind of email these links out to everyone, but making sure on Google My Business, and I think Bill's gotten a couple of questions on this so far, but making sure your hours are updated, are current on your Google My Business profile, as well as if your store is not able to be open because of current events and quarantine, making sure that's called out on your Google My Business profile. Using digital posts, using social posts. Again, this could go on your Google My Business profile, but any digital means necessary to communicate, what how your business is either staying open, has updated hours, is currently closed, and also any promotional offers you want to share or you want to continue to generate interest in the brand Abbey Carpets during this time. Making a business continuity plan. So again, there's an example and a template Google's providing here, but it's talking to all your employees and just making sure that you're creating a plan for your store and your employees, as well as making yourself available for a very open, honest, and transparent communication for I'm sure who are a lot of employees, and a lot of challenges for those employees as they face, and we all face a lot of uncertainty. Kind of move into the working remotely and the third one down. Just additional tools and resources from Google on best practices for working remotely, collaborating with other employees while working remotely. There's just kind of shared documents, quick conference call links, just easier ways to collaborate with coworkers while working from home. And then again, templates and examples for modifying your advertising during this time. But you'll kind of see in these links, and again, I'll share this with Steve and Bill, but how you can just edit your ads during this time, and examples of how people have done so, and best practices for how to edit to stay relevant and have the most up-to-date information with everything that's going on. So that was everything I wanted to walk through. Thanks again to Steve and Bill for kind of allowing me to share this information. Again, I'm happy to join any additional calls as needed, but hopefully everyone finds that helpful, is able to kind of pick up a couple of things there, and yeah, is able to work through this uncertain time.
Thank you, Colin. Let me jump again real quick, Bill.
Yep.
To explain, one of the things Colin was the last section Colin talked about was discovery ads. That's like you said, that's a relatively new capability to us. It's something that we will in all likelihood offer to the Abbey and Floors to Go members relatively soon, as we see that they are having a lot of success with it. I can't emphasize enough just how important it is to stay engaged with the people in your community, to let them know that you're still around, to let them know the status of your business. Here in my agency, the Abbey Floors to Go relationship is important to us, but we in total manage something over $5 million in spend on Google Ads alone. Because of that, that's why we have access to people like Colin and the people he works with directly at Google. They'll always keep us top of mind in terms of capabilities and options. And as those options are available, I'll keep Bill and his team up to date as well. That's it for me, Bill. Feel free to take it back over.
Okay, great. Well, both Steve and Colin, thank you very much for taking the time. We know it's, to us, very, very important to reach out to our Abbey Carpet and Floor and Floors to Go members. And providing the support and the services is obviously our #1 priority. So we certainly, again, thank both of you and your teams for the support you provide to our members. If you have questions, are interested in learning more, if you haven't tried the digital marketing services, if you're doing it now, we're here for you. We have your direct marketing specialists available to talk to you about the programs, see where we are. And again, I think to underscore again what Steve and Colin have said is if we can stay as strong as possible, or at least be ready to be first out of the gate when things do turn, I think is very, very important. So if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. We're here for you. And of course, certainly through this uncertain time, we're with you side by side. So again, members, thank you for taking the time to listen to what we had to say today. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions or need more information. Thank you all. Appreciate the time today.